Yeah, I think we're live, guys.
All right. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Women of Replicated live panel with my guests, Ada, Jalaja, Amber, Sarah, aka Spark, Yelena, and Breezy. My name's Triva, and I'm the developer evangelist slash community manager here at Replicated, and I'm your host for this event. In honor of Women's History Month, we wanted to showcase some of the amazing women and non-binary individuals at Replicated and talk about how we started our careers in tech. For a lot of us, our path to where we are now was not necessarily a straight road, but it was certainly an interesting one. For instance, my background is in fashion, but somehow I ended up here, and it's just the best decision I've ever made in my life. So after our talk, we're going to open up for Q&A if you have any questions. But for right now, let's go ahead and get started. So just going around the panel, can you introduce yourself and briefly describe your role here at Replicated and how long you've been with the company? Let's start with Breezy.
Yeah, so I am the web developer and graphic designer on the marketing team. And I've been with Replicated a little over a year now.
Cool. And how did you get started in tech? Like, did you go to college? I'm sorry.
I did briefly go, well, not briefly, but I didn't finish school. I did go to college. I decided that I had learned enough because I was also very self-taught prior to going to school. So yeah, then I just jumped right into Replicated after doing another stint in school. So I did 10 years in the music industry, and then I went back to school briefly. So I have a little bit of a story.
Wow. Okay. We're going to circle back to that music industry thing. That sounds super fascinating. But for right now, let's go ahead and continue. Ada, what do you do here at Replicated?
Here at Replicated, I'm a technical account manager. I work in our customer success department, and it is my 5th week at Replicated.
That's awesome. How do you like it so far?
Oh, I love it. It's just fantastic.
Well, we love having you here. You're so fascinating. Like Ada, she has the most fascinating hobbies. Like just coolest person ever. Sorry, I'm kind of fangirling a little bit. So how did you start your tech career?
I started when I was really young. I was about 15 in high school when I took my first programming courses. And I was always working on computers. I like to play video games. I was always taking things apart and putting them back together. And I was self-taught mostly throughout school. I did take computer science as a program at Clemson University, but I also didn't graduate from school. Started my tech career after leaving university at the same place that I worked. And yeah, now it's been 15 or 16 years and I've never worked in any other industry.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so happy that you decided to join Replicated. You've been like an amazing asset to the team.
Thank you.
Sure thing. All right, Spark. That's such an adorable nickname. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do here?
Yeah, sure, Trina. Thanks. So I joined a few months ago, and I'm super excited to be heading up the customer success department here at Replicated, and was the biggest advocate and champion of Ada deciding to be the first founding member of the team. So super excited to have her and a couple other folks on the team now.
Cool. And how did you get started in tech?
I stumbled there, I think, is probably the right answer. I actually spent the first half of my career in local government, and about 7.5 years in, made at the time a very, very scary jump into the IT industry. And I've never looked back. It's been really exciting.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, I'm happy that you're here also. You are a spark of joy all the time.
Thank you, Driva.
Of course, of course. All right. Yelena, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Replicated?
Sure. So I'm with Replicated for 3 years. I started here as a front-end engineer, and now I have grown into full stack role. I can't hear you, Triva. Is anyone? Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I hit the
Good.
mute button. And what inspired you to jump into tech?
So I have a pretty traditional story with the CS degree. I got my degree in Croatia, abroad. That's my home country. And immediately after it, I moved to the States. And I would say because of lack of my professional experience and lack of portfolio projects, and I really wanted to be surrounded by people, I joined one of the coding boot camps in LA. And I would say for me, that was really profound experience. And I worked with a lot of other boot campers there on projects. I practiced technical communication. I did a lot of pair programming and a lot of other things, which helped me to land my first job as a software engineer.
Awesome, amazing. Well, you do some amazing things around here at Replicated. I don't understand most of them, but they're cool.
Yes, they are.
And by the way, I like your blouse, but thank you. Let's see, Jalaja. I don't see you on my screen for some reason. Jalaja, what do you do at Replicated? And how long you been here?
Yeah, I joined Replicated like 3 months ago. I'm a core engineer. I work with Elena. And yeah, I've been an engineer since I started my career.
Awesome. Well, I think I that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And now let's jump over to Amber. Amber, what do you do at Replicated and how long you been here?
I am the director of product management, and I've been here just shy of 4 months at this point.
Well, you've done a whole lot of stuff in 4 months. What inspired you to jump into tech?
I would say my route to tech was circuitous as well. Despite the fact that I grew up taking things apart and working on my computer, I never actually considered a career in tech at first. I was on the school path to go be like a doctor, psychiatrist, and I got a degree, master's degree, just very much aimed at that goal. Never realizing that I was getting paid to build websites on the side for my friends. I just never considered that as a career path. And essentially kind of an internship, realized that was not the right career path for me. Had a little crisis of conscience there and realized, well, what do I like to do? Well, I've been tinkering around with computers and building websites, etc., for fun. Why don't I go do that? Except I hadn't gotten an education in that necessarily. So I just did a bunch of self-taught stuff to beef up my skills. I was able to pass a bunch of tests, and that kind of got me my first sort of front-end development job. And I did front-end development for a while before switching to product management officially, which is another career option in tech. And I ended up getting another degree in computer science and engineering along the way, but at least at the beginning, it was all self-taught.
Wow, that's amazing. You were so ambitious and so smart. My goodness, I followed the self-taught route also, but I didn't get that far in it. So very impressed. All right, so I noticed that there are a couple of people that majored in computer science initially, but they decided to move on to other programs or just quit the program altogether, specifically Ada and Breezy. Do you want to talk about why you chose not to continue the program?
I can go first. Yeah, so basically I switched majors a lot and I changed my mind a lot on what I wanted to do. And I think higher education isn't designed to allow for that easily. And especially the school I went to, which I won't throw under the bus, but it's not just my school, it's a lot of schools. They have a very traditional computer science program that was designed in the 80s, before user interface existed, before anything visual, like the softer kind of tech skills existed. And they're still geared toward that. Their biggest recruiter is Lockheed Martin and NASA. And not that those are terrible, like those are wonderful tech careers, but like a lot of women, especially myself, like I wasn't brought up to really love STEM and mathematics, but I loved art, I loved visuals. And I didn't even realize until my mid-20s that you could have a career in tech that was visually oriented and still very technical. And there's also a nice pay increase in tech when you're like me, coming from a more art-driven industry, like the art side of the music industry. So all of that is what inspired me to switch over. And I did do a year and a half back in university for computer science, same one Amber went to. Woo. And it's a great program, great school. But after my 8th math course, I think differential equations is what broke me. I was like, I don't need this for what I'm doing. So just said, had enough, bye. Sorry, Ada.
Thank you, Breezy. I started out at Clemson University in an engineering program and also changed majors several times. So I really couldn't solidify on what I thought I wanted to do in school, and the same way had a lot of trouble with intro maths. I felt like high school math didn't really prepare me very well. I felt like I had a really easy time with like all of the primary and secondary school courses. When I got to college, I wasn't very well prepared for like how much work was involved in college level maths, and had to take calculus 101 several times before it finally clicked. And so I thought that maybe the engineering program wasn't maybe a good fit for me. So I tried a couple things, international business and foreign language, and eventually settled back on computer science because it is what I like to do in my spare time. But when I was in my 4th year of school, my parents had a really hard time in the recession in 2009, and we couldn't afford to go to school anymore. So that was the main driver for my dropping out, and went to go work for the university full time as a help desk manager. And I felt like that did at least help a lot with my experience to be able to take that to other places in my career. I found out early on that I didn't really like to do people managing, and tried to look for web developer, software engineer, infrastructure jobs after that.
Awesome. Amazing. So I'm just curious, the foreign languages major, what languages did you study?
I wanted to study Japanese, so I took a year of Japanese in college and really loved it. It was fantastic, but didn't continue with that program. Wanted to focus on computer science, and just like Breezy's experience, there really was no room in the curriculum to take elective courses. So I was really interested in a lot of things. I wanted to do music as well as art and science, and it just wouldn't fit with the degree requirements in the program that they offered.
Well, still pretty cool. And I mean, self-study, we got Duolingo to harass you into studying again if you ever decide to pick it back up. So I'm just curious, for those who went the traditional route or somewhat traditional route, did you have any female professors in your computer science programs?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Yes, of course. I had multiple of them, and even on the bootcamp, we had females there. So yeah, a lot of them.
How about you, Breezy?
Yeah, I did have a female professor, and she was my favorite, Sarah Angel. She taught some of the harder courses too, like some of the more machine level learning kind of courses that everybody typically hated, but she made them a lot easier, which was nice. And not in like a, typical way, just she was that good at teaching, which was great.
Oh, those are like finding a diamond in a pile of mush, but when you do find them, they're just the best ever.
Yeah.
Those extremely thorough professors that can make complex things seem almost simple. Yeah, love them. Okay, so let's go over to individual questions, starting with Yelena. Would you recommend an accelerated program like a boot camp for women that want to get into tech?
Yes, definitely. Like I said in the beginning, that was really, really profound experience for me. I learned a lot. It's also, you are contributing with other people there. A lot of pair programming, practicing communication, building projects. And if you are interested, I would recommend everyone to go at one. Yes.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I know that a lot of people are interested in boot camps, but they can be a little bit intimidating because they're squeezing like 3, 4, 5, 6 years of content into a 6-week to 6-month period.
That's true. My boot camp was really like military. Every day from 9 to 7 or 8. It was really tough, but for me it worked well. And the main thing which I missed at the beginning was just hanging out with people because I was really alone, and building something with people was really something which I was interested in too.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your experience. And I hope that that doesn't deter anyone from signing up for a boot camp if they decide that they want to do that. Do it.
Yeah, to add Elena's, right? So yeah, boot camps are great. In addition to that, like I found myself learn a lot, like going to these meetups, like go to Kubernetes meetups or any tech meetups once a week, and you study with people and you learn along with others. It was a very good experience. You can learn that way too, actually.
I can add
Thank you
to
for
that.
bringing that up. Sorry.
Yeah, so programming meetups and programming tournaments are really great, and like you should never be intimidated to go to one, because like even if you come in last, it's still fun and nobody shames you. It's all just a good time.
Yep.
So
Very true. And now that outside is opening again, we can possibly hop on meetup.com or whatever platform you decide to use to sign up for some meetups. I used to love those myself. So speaking of transition, Spark, you mentioned in an earlier conversation that you came from local government, moved into tech. For those in the audience that are considering like a big career change, can you give us a little bit of detail on how you made your move and what your biggest obstacles were in making the shift?
Sure. I think if I'm being honest, my biggest obstacle was self-doubt, right? I was taking a very, very large jump from something that had been very comfortable and very natural to something that was quite the opposite, something that felt, just slightly out of reach. So I think for me that getting out of my own way was probably one of the best things I could do. And I would tie that with surrounding myself with people who would lift me up when my confidence wasn't there, making sure that I had a group and an ally of folks that were confident I could make it even when I might not have been quite as confident in myself. I think that combination probably was the obstacle, but also what made it so much fun, because that transition going into my first role in IT really taught me that work didn't just have to be a job. It could be something that was fun. And then later, as my career transitioned even further into the next role, I figured out that my job could be something I was passionate about. So I would just say, don't stand in your own way. Believe in yourself. And if you're not really sure, there's something to be said about the fake it till you make it. Say things with confidence and surround yourself with people that know that they're there to support you and help you learn along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A positive attitude will take you a long way, no matter what you decide to do. But speaking of the self-doubt, I think that's something that a lot of women deal with. I mean, people in general, but especially women. Case in point, statistics show that women are more reluctant to apply for jobs if they don't meet 100% of qualifications listed. And we know how fishy those qualifications can be sometimes, like asking for 15 years of Kubernetes experience when it's been around for 8. Whereas men are more likely to apply for a job even if they don't fully qualified. So we need to, or we should have more confidence in ourselves and kind of push away the self-doubt. I know it's easier said than done, but try to work towards that. And all right, I'm going to stop. But thank you so much, Spark, for sharing. And I'd like to ask, hop back over to Jalaja and ask, so I know that you took the traditional education route, but you had an interesting journey leading you here today. So would you mind sharing a bit about about how, I'm not sure how to phrase that. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how you transitioned to the US and what your path was like?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I want to share that as well. Um, yeah, I grew up in India, and we as kids, you don't have much choice to listen to whatever the parents say, like, choose computer science or mathematics or statistics. So my mom was like, okay, you should go study mathematics and statistics and then become an accountant. I went through that path, but I didn't like it. And then I said, okay, I'm going to go do computer science. So I kind of put my foot down and I said, this is what I want to do. My mom agreed. I want to take this opportunity to thank my mom. She had been my support all throughout. Initially, even though she said I shouldn't do certain things, later on she said, okay, go do whatever you want to do. Then I finished my computer science, engineering in computer science. And I wanted to do masters in United States. So even for that, there was a roadblock that I can't go. Then I had to come here without telling them. And I landed here, of course, on a job first. Through my campus, I got my job, and then through that, I came here. And I pursued my master's. At some point, I had to choose between paying bills and study, and then I chose job. I dropped out of master's, and then it had been a very interesting journey for me. But what I learned over this period of time is, even though you are afraid or fearful about certain things, if you believe that this is what you want to do, go for it. Is what I learned over this period of time. And yeah, so here I am at Replicated, and with a lot of ambitious folks around me who empower me. So I'm so happy.
Well, we're happy you're here. I'm super happy you're here. Thank you so much for sharing. That's such a sweet share. Let's shout out to your mom. That was so sweet. And also, I have to say, it takes a lot of bravery to be able to move to an entirely different country on your own. So, but like I said, I'm glad that you're here. So speaking of brave, bold women, Breezy, how did your music background help you in your tech career?
So I was a really bad musician. So I was actually more in the visual art, like tech side of the music industry. So I was doing websites and photography and stuff like that for independent artists, and learned all the same things you would learn in the tech industry as far as front-end web development goes, because musicians need a lot of that done for them. They need a fully functioning website with a lot of different features, and they need active YouTube accounts and socials and all the things. So transitioning over to tech, the front end and marketing end of tech wasn't difficult at all for anybody that's thinking of making any sort of transition like that, because just like the music industry, the tech industry also needs a forward-facing marketing element to their business. So and that's what I manage at Replicated. So it's perfect.
Awesome. You do an amazing job at it. And if you want to see some of Breezy's work, head over to outdated.sh. Like, that's not a sales pitch. That is just an acknowledgement of amazing design. Like, go look. And speaking of design, that is a very interesting background that you got. Is that your house, or are you streaming from some exotic remote location?
I love how you're phrasing that like you don't know, but I love it. Yes, I am in Cairo, Egypt, at an Airbnb. This is not my own decor, but it is great. But yeah, that's another perk of tech jobs, is you can work remote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not sure I'm going to top that, but let's see. So, group question, show of hands. Did you have mentors when you were coming up in your career, and in what ways did they help you? All right, I see Ada and Spark. Okay, so everybody. Anybody want to give details on a specific mentor, like give a shout out or how they helped you in a very specific, very meaningful way?
I will. I unexpectedly found a mentor while I was still working for the local government. She was someone who came into my life very unexpectedly, but I kind of pivoted in my own career path, even there in government, into more of like a training and knowledge management type of role. And I wound up collaborating with a woman named Gail. And while it might seem overly simplistic, she taught me the art of asking the right questions. And I think that when you think about being a woman and, you know, kind of what we talked about earlier about the lack of confidence that sometimes we might have, or the hesitations and self-doubts that we might have, I think that learning to sit back and listen and probe and ask the right questions can really help you in that level of confidence, because you learn from others when maybe you're not expecting to. So I think Gail was a tremendous part in helping lift my confidence, and ultimately probably was my biggest champion when I did make the leap to leave and move into the IT industry.
Awesome, amazing. Would anybody else like to share? Or?
Yeah, I can share now. Mine is kind of different story, but I didn't have any formal mentors, but I had my family and the friends who helped me. A lot of my friends are in tech, so I use their advice a lot. Also, I want to mention books which I read when I moved to States, starting with How to Win Friends and Influence People, Triggers, Linchpin. I feel those books helped me a lot with better communication, listening, to be a better team player. And yeah, of course, I'm still growing and progressing every day. So if you have any recommendations for books, let me know. I really like to read them. They are great.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I'm going to check that book out. So this probably isn't working so well, show of hands, but just a group question. Since you started your career, have any of you had like an all-female team? No?
Very briefly at Replicated, we had an all-female team for a minute. Not the whole company, I should clarify, just the marketing team was all-female for a couple months. So that was cool. But then David joined and he ruined everything. No, just kidding, David. We love you.
Go it, David. No, I'm kidding. David, we're happy you're here. So I guess if you haven't worked for a team that was all women, has anyone had the privilege of having a female CEO or a manager or someone at director level? I can no answer that question, no, except for now. How about you, Breezy?
I was a CEO for 2 years of a startup that I won't say failed. That's a very strong word, but did not succeed. So that was a really interesting experience, and I highly recommend starting your own company if you are curious how that works, because you never know what it's like until you're in those shoes, and then it's crazy and you learn a lot. It's a great learning experience.
Yeah, I haven't had I haven't had a female CEO yet. That is the company I've worked for, but I've had some women in the VP roles. I think one person I would strongly recommend, if you aren't already familiar with her, that you follow her on Twitter and check her out, was one of my favorite sort of leaders that I looked up to when I got to work at Pivotal Software. Her name is Celia Davis. She's been a leader in the containerization and early Kubernetes space. She's a champion for diversity. She leads most of the panels at the various conferences. She had the longest line I had ever seen for a book signing when her O'Reilly book came out on cloud native strategies. So she's a great person to follow. So she was a very influential leader at Pivotal, and then she's now the CTO of Weaveworks. So she's a great woman to follow in the industry.
Cool. Thanks for that
Right.
recommendation.
Oh, sorry, Triva. I was just going to mention that right now, Sarah is actually my director. So thank you, Sarah. And then we had a fantastic director at my last job working at Docker, Siobhan Casey. So, hey, Siobhan, we miss you.
And then shout out to Sarah Dornstein, our VP of marketing, who is not on this call because she's too humble. But she is excellent, and she is Triva and my boss, and we love her.
Yeah, Sarah's the best. I wish she was on the call because she's so much fun to talk to in general. And I can't thank her enough for even allowing me to do this. So, hey, Sarah.
And I want to shout out to Amber. She's our director of product management. And since she joined in Replicated, I realized that maybe I'm interested in that role because she's doing her job really, really well. And she's motivating us every day. So yeah, thanks, Amber.
Yeah, thank you, Amber. I feel the same way too about Amber.
You both.
Oh, sorry. I was kind of caught up in the love fest. So, okay, if this is a question, like a general question for anybody. If you're comfortable speaking about it, what kind of hardships or challenges did you face, if any, while coming into the industry, and how did you overcome them? And did you have advocates to help you?
I can speak to, in the beginning of my career, I had experienced losing a job that was a real blow to my self-confidence and my esteem, especially because it was one of the first engineering jobs that I had. And it was around the time when I started to transition. And I could never really determine if that was like a contributing factor to losing that job, but it kind of left me with a lot of anxiety about future jobs that I might have and prospects in the industry. And I have to say that since then, I've found an incredible amount of support from the IT community and from the industry at large. But at the time, it was really difficult. And I had just started my transition, and I didn't really have a social support group that I could lean on. I didn't have any mentors at work at the time. And it was really, really hard. But I just want to say that if there are any queer or gender nonconforming folks that are out there who are considering a career in tech, that it does get better.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Ada. Seriously, thank you. Okay. So, all right.
I was just going to share something if we have time too. I think one of the other challenges that I faced, and I think is getting better, but it's still a challenge, is just the fact that as a makeup of the industry, women and non-binary folks, people of color are still very underrepresented. And so you end up running into frictions with that. So early in my career, before there was maybe a little bit more, less awareness and diversity training happening, I would be frequently left out of decisions because, they'd be hallway conversations that led to the men's restroom, were finished in the men's restroom. And then I'd be coming out of the women's restroom, they'd be coming out of the men's restroom on a break, and they'd be like, okay, so we decided what we were going to do. And clearly I was not part of that conversation that continued into the men's restroom, for example. So those were some of the challenges I was having, as well as just challenges with team bonding, because if you work in a heavy male culture and they're all going out for to a baseball game or to a bar afterwards, etc. And then all of a sudden you inject a woman in the mix, and it starts to feel a little awkward, right? And it was harder to bond with the teams as like the only woman on the team. I'm still very aware. I was joking before this started that I was the only woman on a conference call of 10 this morning, and that is still a semi-frequent occurrence, right? So I think one of the important things is just to be aware of that, but also I think I didn't recognize how bad my imposter syndrome was when I was first getting started, and how important it is for you to advocate for yourself, particularly when you are the only woman or person of color or non-binary person, et cetera, in the room. And that's something women aren't always traditionally very good at. So know that pretty much every woman in tech is probably, if you ask them if they have imposter syndrome and they know what it is, they're probably going to say they do. So know that you are not alone. Women, like Treva said earlier, tend not to go after opportunities until you feel like you're perfectly qualified. As someone who has had the privilege of being a hiring manager for several years now, I've seen women not go after roles if the role required a technical test. Not that they couldn't pass the test, there was just like this initial kind of fear barrier, or not go after roles because they weren't perfectly qualified, right? So statistics show that women are less likely to apply for advanced roles. And unfortunately, statistics also show that women are less likely to necessarily get promoted on potential alone than men, where women normally have to have already shown that they can accomplish or do a job. So I think as a hiring manager, my recommendation would be don't let the imposter syndrome hold you back, recognize it, go for the opportunity, but also do what you need to do to figure out how you can track your accomplishments, et cetera, so that you can be a regular ongoing advocate for yourself, because you will need to kind of help bridge that little bit of friction that's still in the industry and be a strong advocate for yourself. And as much as you can, do that for your fellow women, people of color, et cetera, as well.
Yes, absolutely. If anything we can take from that is that representation matters. It absolutely matters.
I would like to add a little bit more to Amber's.
Sure.
Yeah. So I can totally relate to how Amber put it all in a nutshell, like, how an imposter syndrome can hold you back, and, when you're afraid and when fear takes over, then how is it like, will prevent your abilities to or your potential to the fullest extent. So what I learned was, like, even though you are very afraid or fearful about anything, don't hold yourself back from doing what you really want to do, is what I learned. Even though you're afraid, of being afraid is okay, but still go ahead and do what you want to do, what you have to do, is what I have learned, and it seems to work for me, is something I want to share.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for saying it out loud. You have to just push through the fear.
Yes.
Anyone else? All right, so we'll just move on to the next question. So we made a lot of progress, but there's still clearly a long way to go in achieving true equality in the tech industry and kind of in general, even though we've done a great job here at Replicated. So what changes would you like to see in the industry that you believe would move us closer to having true diversity?
I for one, I have a couple thoughts on this. One is not so easy to interact, but I think one of the biggest challenges I do see in the tech industry still around diversity is, a lot of opportunities are created at sort of the inception of these companies, right? So you have a lot of startups, early days. That is not only where you potentially make some money, but more importantly, that is where you end up getting a lot of experience and growth and role that ends up leading you to sort of get tapped for subsequent roles, right? The tech industry is a very small community in the end, and a lot of jobs come through networking for people you've worked with before. And so one of the challenges is just that the startup industry is not that open to women, people of color, unfortunately. And then it sort of creates this self-sustaining thing where if you have 10 white men that start a company and they are friends and have previously worked with several other white men, it's like they are more likely to hire those friends and former coworkers, right? And so that's a big challenge. So I would love to see like VC funding stages tied to things like diversity hiring plans and other things, because we all know from the research that a company is not ultimately going to be successful unless it does diversify its perspective. Depending on what they're making, they're going to sell to very diverse users. So understanding that perspective. So again, harder to implement that, but I would love to see more funding tie-ins to diversity. And then I think a little bit more tactical for companies to implement, or to push at your own company, or to look for, if you're actively looking for companies that do this. What I have seen to be very successful in overcoming some of those inherent and implicit sort of in the industry biases that we were talking about during this call is companies that have required open calls for new opportunities. And particularly if they require things like at least 2 minority candidates must apply for this role before it's filled. Yes, as a hiring manager, I can tell you that slows things down sometimes, but we end up getting significantly better candidates, better hires, and a better company out of it in general. So I would encourage companies to do that. And again, if you are looking, ask them about their diversity policies and what they do to increase the diversity during your hiring process. That is not a bad thing. And if it's a bad thing, you don't want to work there. So strongly encourage that.
Awesome. Awesome. Anyone else? All right. So, I mean, we have just overall in the company, we have a pretty diverse team. We're still in that small startup stage, but it seems like the hiring managers here just seem to want the best person for the job and didn't necessarily look at whether or not that person was part of an underrepresented group. What do you think that Replicated has done well to create a diverse environment? And that question's for anybody.
I can start.
Oh, go ahead, Yelena.
Yeah, I think Replicated has put a lot of effort, work to make this as a welcoming environment. So when I joined Replicated, I recently moved to America and my English wasn't great. And I was making mistakes in every sentence. And I never felt like anyone was judging. Instead, everyone here was really friendly and willing to help with anything. Was that related to work or not? So it's really welcoming environment for everyone.
I definitely agree with that one.
Yeah, one thing I would add to that, Treva, and while it may not be quite as directly in line with how we move closer to diversity, but in an effort to make the conversation not so taboo, I think that one thing Replicated does amazingly well that I personally welcome and appreciate here is that conversations, even difficult ones, are welcome, right? Like everybody has an opinion, and I appreciate that the culture we have at Replicated welcomes difficult and challenging conversations and hearing one another's perspectives, even if occasionally they don't agree. But I think making sure that you don't create a workplace and a work environment where current relevant topics in the world are not able to be discussed. I think that promotes continued diversity and just acceptance in having an environment where it's a safe space to talk through your feelings about things that you see on the news or things that maybe you want to better understand. And I think that's something we do well and that a lot of other places could really work on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Spark. That was amazing. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I just wanted to add Elena's, right? I mean, I just joined 3 months ago and my onboarding was like, awesome. Like everyone in the team was very helpful. And, initially I was a bit nervous. Oh, can I do this? Can I ask this? But then after some time, I felt that everyone is helping you to succeed. So just go ahead and do what you want to do. So it's really great.
It seems like a really minor thing, but it's actually really important. I think that even our founders and our, executives Everybody is really conscious of gender pronouns and using inclusive language. And I think that's really important and really significant. And I'm really proud of our company for that. You know, we don't like condemn anyone who makes mistakes, but everybody is very careful about, you know, using folks or y'all or, you know, inclusive language. And I think that's great.
I would just add the other thing is, you know, I almost 4 months here, we've hired a lot of diversity recently. And that is also sort of a fulfilling thing, because back to the tech industry being a lot of networking and connections, women talk to each other and they're like, hey, what do you think of this company? You know, like, is it kind of like a bro network, or, you know, what's it like there? And it's like, no, this company's great. They're amazing. And so by paying attention to diversity, you know, one of the reasons a lot of companies are considering staying remote permanently post-COVID is because it greatly expands the amazing talent you can get throughout the country. And when you start actually paying attention to your diversity and have a good culture like everyone's talking about here, all of a sudden people are like, this is a good company, and women and start coming out of the woodwork being interested in the company, right? And I think that's another thing that Replicated's done, is it has focused on this, and we've hired several amazing folks, and they've beget several amazing more folks, right? And so it's really important for companies to pay attention to if you want to tap all this great talent.
Absolutely. And so statistics show that more diverse teams eventually generate more income, more revenue. So that's, if you're not convinced by now, that should convince you. Diversify your teams, people. So, okay, so we're coming up on time, and I just wanted to ask you all one last question. If there's anything else that you want to share with the audience, like any anecdotes, any advice, like sing a short song, anybody?
I would just advise, like, the people who are listening, who are wanting to get into a career in tech, or maybe advance their career in tech, you know, study there's a lot of material out there around women in tech and women in leadership. And a lot of times you aren't encouraged to start to take these programs or courses until you're already in leadership. And I would encourage you to take them very early in your career. So learn about things like the double bind and strategies that women can adopt in order to sort of deal with the sort of implicit bias that exists in a less diverse workplace. You'll not only learn what some of the obstacles you might run into in your career are, but you'll learn strategies, you'll learn techniques to help make not just women, but men your advocates in the workplace as well. So I would strongly encourage you to study women in leadership and women in tech far before you ever actually make it to a leadership role.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Amber. Anybody else?
Yeah, that reminded me, Amber. Another tip I give people that are looking maybe into transitioning to tech or coming into tech after school or whatever, don't just look at big companies. Like we're a relatively small startup, and it's really advantageous and fun to work for smaller tech companies too. So the tech world isn't just Google and Facebook. It's a lot of really fun, smaller companies too.
And you can make a lot bigger impact at a small company too. So +1 to what Breezy said.
And I feel also you grow faster. You learn a lot, which is great.
All right, so this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you all for joining. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I really appreciate your time. And I know the audience appreciates you showing up too. And speaking of our audience, thank you all for joining. Whether you're watching the live or you're streaming this later on, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you all. I hope that you came away from this, or that I hope that you come away from this feeling inspired. And I hope that if you're already on a journey to transition into a tech career, that this will inspire you to go further. And if you're thinking about transitioning, I hope this will inspire you to start. And speaking of, we're hiring. So if you are looking for a career at an awesome startup, head over to replicated.com/careers. And if you see something that interests you, whether or not you meet all of the criteria, send an application. So thank you all so much for joining. And I hope we see you at the next live stream. Bye, everybody. Bye, ladies.
Bye.